Hey guys, I'm just going to tell y'all that those who didn't, no, I'm going to save this message for whenever other people get on. Hey guys. Obviously today's a day that I need to oil up like so good. So I'm just letting y'all know that I've got like sandalwood, I've got present time, I've got clarity, I got something else on. I don't even remember. I got some stuff. So now that Brooke and Lisa are here, y'all don't get to be my friends anymore because you made fun of me in my process. So I just wanted to reserve that gem for whenever y'all were watching. Today I really struggled with what to talk about and why. And I had to work back through my breadcrumbs and my reflections, even to what I said yesterday. How much I struggle with 1 Corinthians because it seems like a whole lot of opinion and a whole lot of patting myself on the back and a whole lot of, I don't know, all kinds of stuff. And Lisa and I had spoken before about that martyr spirit. And I really, in my own walk, have discovered so many things that I had wrong that to sit there and pat yourself on the back for several chapters, it's just a bit much for me. But at the same time, I came across a few verses that really struck me as an author of things whenever, like my insecurities as an author, having the right words. Even I noticed in that email that I spoke about earlier from 8 years ago, I said I could not send it until I had the right words. So obviously the right words is a good way to make me wonder. And we doubt ourselves and our authority, and by speaking and doing what we are called to do, we draw more attention to us, right? Because we have to be louder than the voices that are lying to people. We have to be louder than those misconceptions that we've picked up and walked out as truth because they seemed so right, because they applied to so many people. And whenever you do that, you draw the attention of unbelievers and vicious, y'all are on social media right now, you know how that can go. And I realized even at some point that by accepting that was going to come to me, I was giving it more permission already. I was opening the door for it to come, and I realized I was doing that. I shut that door like real quick. And yet I sat there, and even as I was reading Corinthians, I was kind of the same person. The one that I was like, you don't have permission to be here? But what hit me whenever I reread it was, I came to you in weakness, timid and trembling, and my message and my preaching were very plain. Rather than using clever and persuasive speeches, I relied only on the power of the Holy Spirit. And that's 1 Corinthians 2, 3-4. Whenever I was first called to write my book, it had to be written in a certain order. And I know that because there were certain things that almost immediately on the heels of that, he was like, oh, by the way, I want you to go to Virginia and you have to do all these things that if you had known about them before, you would have taken this book for granted, right? We would have taken all of this information for granted because it was baby information and it was common sense to me at that time. And so I know he does these things in this certain order, but even I've had to reread my first book several times. And every time I read it, I just think, wow, it's so simple. It's so simple that I had to write this, but I can see all the ways that it's so relevant. And I know that he wanted me to because of the pictures that he showed me. But at the same time, there were so many grains of truth in there that I didn't know why I was writing them. And now I'm like, oh. And so it kind of goes back to, there is a point and a purpose, even if you're writing something that may strike someone a different way, like 1 Corinthians did to me, that there are gems in there, even if you are past the point of the basic concept of what you're reading. And even in reference to who teaches you, there's a verse that says, whether Paul or Apollos or Peter or the world or life and death or the present and the future, everything belongs to you, and you belong to Christ, and Christ belongs to God. And that's 1 Corinthians 3:22-23. And I was like, so basically, doesn't matter who's delivering it, that everything belongs to me, and you belong to Christ, and I belong to God. And so all of those things, see, of course Lisa would like 1 Corinthians. And yes, I meant that exactly the way that it came out, Lisa. So whenever I'm reading this, it's like, oh, even these things I don't like belong to me. Even these chapters that I don't like belong to me. Even these messages that are so obvious that they should not apply to me anymore, they belong to me. And so they are mine to process. And then you get to the next part. Well, it's not the next part. It's later on. And it says, I discipline my body like an athlete, training it to do what it should. Otherwise, I fear that after preaching to others, I myself might be disqualified. And I read that and think, how many times have I been preaching to myself? How many times have I sat right here and said, oh, wow, that hurts. Like, ouch, that's stabbing me right now. Because we are made to be that way, that constant growing and that constant growing with people. That even, it doesn't say, otherwise as I sit in my house by myself. It says, I fear that after preaching to others, I myself might be disqualified. And what is disqualified? Disqualified is convicted, ignored. And so we feel convicted, and we can see that little tiny way that applies to us. But that doesn't apply to me right now because I'm past that. I've already come past that. So that's part of my past journey. That doesn't apply to me right now. And so we were convicted, and then we ignored it. And then we were disqualified, even though we had given all of those. And in another part, it's not in here, he even talks about that even as you hook a bull up to work the field, that you're not supposed, or an oxen, you're not supposed to stop the oxen from eating there. And even the sacrifices brought to a temple, that the temple workers got to eat from those sacrifices, because should they not benefit from what they've done? And so whenever you look at it at that group benefit, that reaping and getting to see the harvest and all those things, even if you didn't have a part in it, is where we get disqualified, because we're no longer relatable, and we're no longer growing, we're no longer learning, and we're no longer taking our own advice. And I'm at that unique place where you can see exactly how many ways that you have done something so wrong for so long, and you're convicted by your own spirit. Because when you finally have that last filter revealed and see the ways that it applies to you, you're like, I'm going to shut up now, and I'm going to stay in my own lane. But what today he really put on me was intentions, that intentions matter. That by staying in our own lane, and we look at it, it has to be so black and white, that I've said so many wrong things before that I have to shut up now, is actually not true. Because our intentions before were for our own good, and they were for our own selfish reasons. And the intentions that we speak with now are for our good and for our growth, and so that we don't have to get back out of our lane later, and we don't pity ourselves in our lane, and we don't stay home and be quiet because we found that we're a whole bunch of hypocrites, that we are preaching to others and being convicted and not ignoring it. And so having to have that conversation of, I really don't want to have this conversation with you, but I also really don't want to repeat that old pattern. I don't want to go back to that place, and I just have to let you know how this is coming off to me, and how I can very easily pick this up and carry it the way my old self would have. And I don't want to do that, and I want to help us avoid getting to that part where this whole thing right here becomes a problem. And so we have to speak, and we have to actually walk it out. We have to actually make our bodies do the training of the right training of learning how to use our intentions. And even, I'm not going to go into super duper detail, but I'm going to tell you that one thing that he showed me was that we speak from our own experience on the surface, but we have to train ourselves to go through the whole process every time with someone, every single time that anything comes up, to look at those breadcrumbs. And then it even goes back to what Dr. Charnel said of taking every thought and making it obedient to truth. Because in that time, whenever we could so easily go, oh no, that's not the same thing, and we have to come back and we have to say, why is this allowed to come to me? How did I leave this door open? And it's usually because we ignored the door because we no longer saw it as important. And that people don't train alone. they have people who have degrees in whatever it is that, personal trainers have degrees in, and wellness and fitness and biology and all of these things. They did all these things. But these people, they don't go and get all of these things so that they can do all these workouts and all of these keto diets and all of these things alone. They do that whenever they do that, it's so that they can teach someone else the right way and they can do it together. And they have someone to hold them accountable, and they have someone to talk to, and they have someone to walk it out with. That whenever it says that I discipline my body like an athlete, we are training it to do what it should. We're training it to go where it doesn't really want to go, but we need to make it comfortable to be going there so that it doesn't have to come back over here. And that, to me, was like, yay, just yay, because I really like doing that over and over again. And it kind of gets to the point of, do I really have to do this again? Well, obviously, because I'm learning that discipline to go there and to see that I went there and I didn't die and I'll be fine. And then in another one, this verse is in reference to meat sacrificed to pagan gods and deities. But I want you to look at it in terms of what we sacrifice of ourselves, whether it's time, whether it's authority. Because there was two words that stuck out, and I surely hope that Brooke is still watching, because Brooke is about to fall all over herself whenever I bring this up. It says, no, not at all. And this is in reference to the meat. Are you supposed to turn down the meat just because it was offered to pagan gods and deities? It says, no, not at all. I'm saying that these sacrifices are offered to demons, not to God. And I don't want you to participate with demons. You cannot drink from the cup of the Lord and from the cup of demons too. You cannot eat at the Lord's table and at the table of demons too. What? Do we dare to rouse the Lord's jealousy? Do you think we're stronger than he is? You say, I'm allowed to do anything, but not everything is good for you. You say, I am allowed to do anything, but not everything is beneficial. Don't be concerned for your own good, but for the good of others. And every time I see this, and let's see if I could explain, because I'm going to get to the any in a minute. Every time I see this, I see that wall that comes up that stops us from receiving, that is rebellion, that is pride, those things. Whenever we give in, and we are literally offering a piece of ourself to these demons that we've given authority, the ones that we are allowed to taint our thoughts and our minds and our reactions and our relationships, that is a offering to them. And so whenever we offer ourselves, which is our literal, our body, our physical presence on this earth, the one that was supposed to be reserved for Jesus, that is where Jesus dwells, that we have, we're planted in his heart in heaven. Whenever we bow to those instead, because it's easier, it's more convenient, or we don't have to feel convicted, or we don't have to go through pain and all of those things, that is whenever we rouse his jealousy. Do you think we are stronger than he is? And you say, I am allowed to do anything. And I'm going to tell you what I have learned about any. There's Brooke. Okay. Any is an a-hole. And I know that she has been waiting on me to say this all this time. I was having a hell of a time. There's no other word to say that. A hell of a time getting my book published. My name was wrong. The editor changed very, very little. He did pretty good. He only threw up some semicolons that I usually wouldn't have had a semicolon. I'm not a semicolon person, but I can respect a semicolon. But the issues that I was having was that my name was wrong. And my name, Rebecca, means to tie or bind or come together. And my middle name means, which my middle name's not on the book, but my middle name means lake or pool or leader. And my last name means Godfather. And so you could see how all three of those are they're very powerful names. And I was like, these are my names. Like, I want them, and they are there, and they're going to go on the cover. But yet, everywhere I turned around, it would put me as Becky. Now, I'm Becky to my friends. I really couldn't even tell you what Becky means. But I know what Rebecca means, and I know everything that it stands for, and I know what I do now about our frequency and what we put out, and just the frequency that saying our name with the way that it was originally spoken to mean and what that stands for. And y'all, I was mad. Whenever I realized I mailed a check to the publisher and it did not get there, and we're not talking about a small check. And then one of the books that I was contributing to, they kept trying to attach the word spellbinding to the title. And when I tell you that I was furious, you will not put the word binding. My God does not bind, and success is not binding. And success was also in the title. And you cannot put spellbinding on a title of something that is designed to set free, because to be successful means you are no longer held back. So you're going to explain to me. And I got so upset and could not figure out where this was coming from. And something came to mind of all the times that I had said, any help would be appreciated. Any change, Lord, anything. Can you do anything to help me? And it wasn't just to God, it was to the universe. Can you do anything to help me? Because at that point, we're so flustered that we're just like, that anything would change. And when you look at it in reference to a familiar and all of the attack that we're under, then we literally give any of them permission to act in our lives. And so whenever we look at that in reference to our familiars, the things that we've given permission to have authority, that, yes, I was livid about spellbinding. And even my reaction was to a clue. My reaction to that, talking it through with someone else, was giving me a clue that there was something bigger going on that didn't make any sense. And the word that kept coming to mind was misdirection. Okay, God, can you please show me what misdirection I have allowed to come between me and your book? Because this is not my book, this is your book. And so would you please show me what is coming between? And I will do not ask if you do not want to know, because he will show you every single thing that you have allowed to come between you and your purpose. I mean, you ask, you get it. And so the any expectation is a lie. Any implies no order. All is welcome. It is chaotic, good or bad, wild card. You set no expectations when you accept any input, any ideas, any reaction, any lack of order or value, positive or negative, to come through your door. And I'm just going to tell you, if you have ever volunteered in any capacity ever, you know the people who come, when you say, who can help me this day? You will either have so many people whose intentions are great, who have no idea what they're doing, and you will have one or two people who are really, really helpful to you. And so you spend the whole day walking around and jogging around people whose intentions are great, but they are no help to you at all. And so how much of our lives, how much of a percentage do we spend walking around things that don't have any business being there because we gave them permission to be there, to where the helpful people, you can't even find them in the crowd? And even more so is all the times that we've said, well, anything's better than nothing. Even as far as someone gives you something and you get it and one of the headlights doesn't work, or I don't know, whatever, the shoelaces are ragged, or the sole comes off a week after you buy something used in a group. Right about then, you're not saying that anything is better than nothing. You're saying, excuse me, but I paid for this, and yet this is what I got. And what we fail to realize is that whenever we give any permission to be here, we paid for that, and this is what we got. That is what we asked for. That is what we requested. That was what we offered ourselves as payment to that. And whenever you have that wild card in your home, your spouse, your marriage, your family, your children, your faith, your finances, your business, your team, and you forget that only God is welcome in this house, and we have allowed all of these other things in, how likely are you going to see what God is actually doing where you are? How much of this, while we're looking at our feet and bumping into people and carrying things and making sure that we don't drop them because we asked for any? How many times have you called someone and said, any news? Why don't you say good news? Why don't you say God news? Why don't we open the door for that? What about, have you heard anything yet? No, I want to hear good things. I don't want to hear anything anymore. I have heard too much of anything, and I have said so many times, God, can you please show me which things are of you? How is he supposed to do that whenever I just let any old body in? Do you let just any old body in your house? Not voluntarily. I mean, we all, for the most part, we lock our doors, right? But yet whenever you let anyone in, if I left my door open on the street that I live right now, and I said, anyone welcome, anytime, I cannot even imagine all the hadias that would be in my living room, and then we would have a problem. But the things that we're inviting in, we cannot see. And so whenever we accept that any help is not God help, it's not any response is not a God response, any means is not a God means, anything being welcome in my home allows the bad to flood the gate and hides the joy in the crowd. And leaving the door open for anything hadn't done a single good thing for me, but God has. Because whenever you kick it out, then you can see which of those things are of him, and you can see which of those things are not. And it'll be a whole lot more clear to you, even while you're, not happy at all. You can still look around and see which of those things were supposed to come to you. And you can see which ones were able to afflict you in a certain moment that they don't have permission anymore. And Brooke, I would like to know the number that you come up with. I just want you to know. Because all of those things we open the door for. And I feel like this is also an important time. Whenever I say intentions matter, this has been expressed to me multiple times in the ways that whatever you bring into your home, whether it is a cross, is that God's cross? Is that like, did you pray over it and anoint it and acknowledge that it represents Jesus? Or did you buy it because it was pretty and it was a cross? Because if you just bought it because it was pretty and it was a cross, there were crosses around a long time before there was Jesus. And the cross didn't suddenly become sacred because crosses are used by, the Church of Scientology has one. I'm going to put it to you that way. And I'm pretty sure that they did not pray and bless that cross. But that false sense of security, that's an any. And even as far as, what's another one? Herbs and whatnot. There was a circumstance where a very, very good herb, a powerful herb, was placed in my hand. And the label on it was from a witchcraft store. And I was like, nope, I love all the plants in the world. But if I know that this one was purchased and packaged with those intentions, then I can't use it for God's intentions. And that goes back to, you cannot eat at the Lord's table and at the table of demons too. Because if that thing has already been declared to be for something else, then we can't exactly claim it for Jesus too. We can make those intentions known, but we cannot just pick it up from where it is and use it just like that and be mad whenever we actually invited those things into our house. So if I'm thankful for anything, I'm really thankful that we've had this opportunity to even come together, because even just speaking about intentions and the conversation that I was trying to have before I came in here was also based on intentions. And I'm going to tell you, whenever you have to make sure that your intentions are correct before you speak to someone, you can be really, really thankful that you didn't put yourself back on that old path and that old conviction and that old habit, the one that's really easy to fall back into, because we all have that memory of it wasn't all that long ago. And it wears off after the new wears off after the first, couple of months, where then you're like, oh, so I have to do this every day. I have to realize, am I still blurry to y'all? Okay, there it is. Yes, Lisa, we can reclaim it. That's what I said that. We can reclaim it, but we can't just pick it up where it is and think that just because it's supposed to represent God that it does. Because the old religions, every single one of those went back to being rooted in truth, and it was perverted by a spirit in between then and now. Every single bit of knowledge that anyone was ever given on this earth was for God, and it was for our good, and it was to glorify Him. And look how that turned out. So, I don't know about you guys, I'm just thankful that we have a chance to reprogram our words with our intentions, that we have a chance to look at all of these things and to be given these tools to be able to serve Him and more effectively use our words and our actions and our permission and our authority and our agreement, and we can close the dang door. So I love you guys. Maybe tomorrow our guest speaker maybe will be Nicole Phillips, who is a minister to people living in the sex industry, and the very unique way that she was called to serve those people and minister to those people and just love those people. And if you want to know how that even came up to be a possibility, in reading 1 Corinthians 9, he says that whenever I was ministering to the Jews, I lived among the Jews, and that as long as we know who our God is, that when we serve them where they are, then they can basically more easily accept a God who loves, because that's the greatest gift of all. And she immediately came to mind, and I could have sworn that I had asked her, and apparently I didn't. So if it's not her, then we'll be talking some more tomorrow. One last time before Erin, I don't know if Erin's pre-recording a video or if she is coming on live earlier on Tuesday. I'll be posting her time and her bio, and I'll let you guys know if it's Nicole tomorrow. If it is Nicole, you guys are in for a treat because she's amazing. She's actually an ordained minister, and she's a powerhouse. So I'll be praying for you guys. I love you guys. Thank you for hanging out with me like all this time, and I'm really kind of sad about our next 2 days, but I will see you tomorrow.